The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts, ownership, or management. And now, on with the show.
All right, we're back here at the Westgate Resort with three good friends, colleagues, co-workers, whatever you want to call us all together. One big family here at the Westgate Resort and Elvis Presley's dressing room, talking about show business. So, guys, here we go. Let's continue on where we were. We left off where Al got taken from your teacher, your drama teacher took you to the hall?
Where I started, I was in high school, a sophomore, finished wood shop and got tired of it because it wasn't challenging. So I thought, I will take a class called stagecraft. What is I have no idea. I took stagecraft, had a teacher who was an ex-dancer on the strip. And the class was challenging, interesting, and I said, this trade is for me. Our union used to do shows at the Las Vegas Auditorium, or Las Vegas High School Auditorium, and they would send in union people to do the job for whatever the show was, a concert, a speech, a recital. It could be many things, but they didn't know the equipment or the stage, so they would say, could we use some of your high school students? And many of us were thrilled to work with IA members. As we worked, we become friends, and there was 5 of us that went on to use this trade and become part of this trade.
5 of you?
5.
Out of
Eddie
Las
Alcorn,
Vegas?
Dick Long, Ray Isom, myself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so the union was short of help, and they went to the teacher and said, do you think your students would work to fill in the void of not enough people? And that's how we basically moved into the union and become part of this work trade.
I had no idea 5
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all stayed with the trade, or most of them stayed with the trade from the beginning through retirement. And I tend to do build shows. I would travel from hotel to hotel building shows.
I remember Eddie Alcorn, but I don't remember where he worked.
Eddie Alcorn was Henry Alcorn's son, who was the head carpenter at the Tropicana on Folies Bergère. And he was, what would you say, a very qualified union person that would advance things. He was a saddle maker, actually, when he moved from here. He was a saddle maker. So he applied that in the trade. He was my first boss at the Tropicana when I started. They needed a person to work for a retiring member to work 2 nights a week. And that's how I got started in it. Started working full-time after that.
And then Dick Long, where did he go? Do you know?
He was here for a
He was
long
here.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
At the Hilton?
Yeah, he
Oh,
worked.
yeah,
he
in
worked
the
here.
lounge. He did a lot of lounge, a lot of spotlight work. In the
Yeah,
lounge.
he did lounge. Then he did tech services is what they ended up calling it eventually. It's takes care of all the paging systems all through the hotel. and-
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those guys, yeah, Dick Long was here forever and ever. And that's what it is. Let's move on to Al's brother, Pat, since there's two Pats here.
Oh, I think
We'll come back and talk more, but let's just get a little overview
how,
on you.
how I got into the business
Yeah, a little bit about you and
is how I got into the business is we all followed my brother.
okay.
Is
Well, thanks. Let's move on down the line then.
yeah, many years ago, I was going out of high school. I was going to go to air conditioning school. I was going to go to Phoenix and go to air conditioning school, and my brother was working at the Thunderbird at the time, and I thought he was working at a convention, a Ford convention, and he says, "Come on with me," and I said, "Okay." So I went with him, and he took me to a topless show at the Thunderbird, and he set me in front of the light booth right next to the window, and I was 17 maybe, and all these girls came out with no tops on, and I thought I was in heaven, and I actually hit the window with my head, and that changed my whole trade.
Right there,
And
huh?
it is his fault, and I've been just going from place to place and working in the industry and doing many things, traveling the country, traveling the world, and got into rigging and training and being part of the union at that time, and just became head carpenter. Actually, when I got in, I went through the union was putting on classes to get into the union, and I went through 3 months of classes at the university, and then I got offered a job at the Stardust where my brother was working, and when they decided to hire me, he left, and I think went to MGM. I think you did, and he left, and Pat told me kind of the same story as he left but he left, and I wound up at the Stardust working for, what was his name? The stage manager?
I'm having a brain loss. Give me a minute, I'll think about it.
Okay, but I wound up working there with
Walter Shaner.
Walter Shaner and
Bobby Simmons.
Bobby Simmons, but Bruce, who was
Jimmy Bruce.
not Jimmy,
Paul Bruce.
Paul Bruce.
The Bruce family.
The Bruce family, and they used to be big. And during the time, Jimmy Bruce, Paul Bruce's kid, was a rodeo bronco. He used to ride broncos, little guy, muscles. When we were at the high school, at Las Vegas High School, the arbor was out of weight, and he grabbed it, and he was just a little guy, and it took him up, and I grabbed his feet and held on to him, but worked at the Stardust, long story, worked at the Stardust, and then went from the Stardust to the Celebrity Room at the MGM, which now is Bally's, which now is the Horseshoe. Went there and wound up working there on and off, basically the same as he's done forever. I'd leave and I'd come back, and I'd leave and I'd come back, and then finally I became the head carpenter there, and I was the head carpenter, and my flyman there was Paul Bruce. And that was a little switch, because in our industry we find out that you may be a worker now, but you could be the head tomorrow and working for. So when you treat people, you have to treat them as if they're going to be your boss. So all of a sudden, I was his boss in the Celebrity Room, and I was there for a very long time, and I would still be there if they wouldn't have closed the room. But they made a hallway when they built Paris, and it was time for me to leave. And
That was another nice room. That was,
oh, it did a lot of star policy. It did.
Yeah.
It did Dean Martin. It did Sammy Davis Jr. We did Helen Reddy. We did. Oh, it just goes on and on and on. Just crazy. And experienced a lot. It was star policy, working star policy other than production shows is a completely different thing because as you've talked about, the turnover is 1 week you're doing one show, and in them days it was 2 shows a night, 7 nights a week, and then you would change the show, and the next day a whole nother show would be in there. And what we used to do was go from one show up to another. So we would do the show change at the Bally's, and the next night, after it was open, the next night we would go down to here, the Hilton, and change this show. And then the next night we would go to another, and that was how we worked. That was tradition.
I was about to say, I was on the circuit too. I would do the same thing, you know. I think Sunday nights was the show changes here. Caesars was Monday or Tuesday. Bally's was another day. I mean, you just. When
I went to, for a long time there, I wouldn't tell anybody my last name because, and he's experienced this, my nephew, is we would walk in the room and they would think that we were Al Bash. We knew everything that he knew and that we should be able to do everything. So I went to, they say, what's your name? I said, Pat. And what's your last name? Oh, and it's just Pat. I was at the Frontier one time, and I had a tool. My tool bag was actually a CD road case, and I was at the Frontier working for, what was his name? You know who worked with
Lee Parsons?
Lee Parsons, working with Lee Parsons, and Lee Parsons knew who I was, but I didn't know. I was young. I took my little bag of tools I put up on the air conditioning deck, and Lee Parsons there, and I'm working, and he comes up and says, so who are you? And I says, well, I'm Pat. He says, well, who are you? I remember this so well. I says, I'm Pat. He said, okay, what's your last name? I says, well, I'm Pat Bash. He says, you're what? And I says, yeah, I'm Pat Bash. He says, you're fired. And right then, my toolbox slid off of the air conditioning deck, hit the ground, all my tools went everywhere. And I said, oh, I went to pack it up and walk out the door because I thought I got fired because of him. As I'm sitting in the room, though, in the showroom, I see welding helmets with his name on it. I see tools hanging on the walls with his name on it, thinking, really? And so a couple of weeks later, when I finally saw him, I says, you know, you got stuff hanging at the Frontier with all your name on it and everything, your welding helmets and that. But for a long time, I wouldn't tell anybody my last name because of his ability and everything else. Now I use it to my advantage, but and when I need help, which we all need help on building something or that, I call my brother.
Yeah.
And he says, how do I do this? I actually had him. We built a turntable that's sitting in the Palms right now in the nightclub area, and I couldn't figure out how to keep it from moving. And it 75 years old, 70 years old, I had him crawl underneath the turntable with me to give me ideas on how to fix it because he's that support, and he's always been that support type thing.
You know, he set the bar way too high, I guess. Huh?
There are no boundaries on what stagehands do.
No, there is not.
Stagehands really don't know. They can't do it. They just do it because it's a make-believe world, and so you just go on and do it. And that's the way stagehands, in my time, did. We built shows that we were way not prepared for, but because the hotels believed in us and backed us, and we did it because it was the challenge of it, and come out with.
And you probably understand that challenge because you probably got into it too during putting shows in and everything else. Is how do we do that? Oh, I don't know. Let's figure it out and just do it.
Yeah.
And do it safely and.
Well,
Because it's only done one time.
Yeah, the key on that, and I have found that here, is just having really good people around you and walking through it, stepping through it. Okay, but it's got to do this, it's got to do this, and some having suggestions come in from different places. But when you're the head carpenter, you got to make the call, which one of these is going to work.
Carpenters here in 4 different rooms. Whoa! Who would have ever thought?
Yeah, in 4 legendary rooms too. You know, and he's been in more, but yeah.
You talk about when I first started over at the Desert Inn, and I walked in there, and the guy looked at me, and he says, "What's your name?" And I said, "Pat." And he goes, "Pat," and I'm like, "Okay, Bash." He goes, "Oh, you Pat's kid?" I went, "No, I'm Al's son." "You're Al's son?" "Oh, well, here," and he handed me a set of plans and said, "Go build this." And I kind of looked at it and went, I sort of know how to read the plans, but I went, okay. And I went and built it. No experience, no nothing. I sort of knew how to weld and because of him. But here, you're Al Bash's son. Go build this.
Yeah.
Do the union story.
Oh, jeez.
Do the union story. This is a good one.
Oh, I can't even think of his name right now.
Gary Plaintiff.
Gary Plaintiff. When I first walked into the hall.
And you laugh.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Why? Why can't you help him?
Mean dances with words?
Dances
Yeah.
with words. He did well too with that, didn't he?
Right out of high school, walked into the local and said, "Hi, I'm Pat. I'm here to sign up. I wanted to be a stagehand." And Gary Plaintiff was in charge of all that, and he looked at me and says, "Pat, what?" I went, "Bash." And same experience you have because, it's just Pat. "Oh," he says, and again he said, are you Pat's son?" I went, "No, I'm Al's son." "You're Al Bash's son? Holy moly, come on." And he took me into every single office and shaking hands. And it was, "This is Al Bash's son, Pat." And at the time I was not on the friendliest terms with my dad. But I wanted to be my own person. I didn't want to be Al's son, Pat. I wanted to be Pat.
You can't hardly escape that, though.
Right. Yeah. And now
You
I
don't know that as a kid.
Right.
I mean, I had, five uncles and my dad in the hall. You can't escape it.
And now I am, obviously now I embrace it and everything
Yeah.
like that. And it was so so much. I left for 2 years. Went and did other things and worked at the airport and did other jobs and everything, and finally decided, became better terms with my dad and everything, realized that he's just a person, and we've become very good friends, but went, hey, this isn't such a bad thing.
No.
Went back to the hall, and then he obviously got me in over at the Desert Inn, working over there, putting in showstoppers. And that's where I walked in there, and they handed me a set of plans. "Well, you're Al's kid. Here, go build this." And I had to build 2 great big platforms for gymnasts with trip dollies on it. Had no clue what I was doing, but figure it out. I made it work. So,
Yeah.
and went
Still
on
there
from there.
today, rolling around with gymnast on it, right?
Yeah, no. Well, the building's kind of gone now.
Yeah. No, so you had the pleasure, you were over there with my brother Scott, obviously, and
There were
you-
seven sons working that show.
yeah.
7
When
sons.
you say 7 sons, you're saying 7 members, sons?
7
different
members, sons working on that show.
And everybody should experience a Jeff Kutash show one time in their life.
Oh, well, yeah. Things that go in the show.
I still work with him.
Do you really?
He still comes by the shop, him and Marty. He's a unique person.
Yes.
I'm telling you what, a unique person. I worked with him. We did, was it Showstoppers where we actually put a gorilla hand on a
Showstoppers.
what was it?
Well,
It was a golf cart.
a golf cart.
Yeah, they came down and held the girl. And,
Yeah. The monster head was on a forklift.
Yeah.
Pushing that, and that was my job to do that. And things that come in the show, and then he'd get a cease and desist from some lawyer, and it would leave the show, and something else would come in. So it was just constantly changing.
Yeah. Well, I was working Splash for those 6 years, and then Showstoppers was over there. So You know, I was all over the place, from relief head carpenter, relief cue caller, relief stage manager, head audio. I did all lasers. I did everything in that place.
We had Jeff Kutash come in, and he was the opening act for Dean Martin. And he had these custom Mylar mirrors made for the dancers that he had there for the opening of the show, and they did this whole routine, probably about 20 minutes routine. Come to find out, he never paid for the Mylar mirrors, and so we wound up having to keep him because the hotel had to pay for him. And then we heard, and this is all rumor, we don't know for sure because we weren't there. We weren't that part of it. That he paid the girls, and they were pretty good dancers and everything. He didn't pay them very well, and it was a whole big to-do, but he was the opening act. That's where I first ran into him, was the opening act for a Dean Martin show at Bally's Celebrity Room.
Yeah, I got to be around him for 6 or 7 years over there at Splash. That was,
And Marty
Marty Romley.
Romley.
Yep.
He's still around.
Oh yeah, the funny thing about it was they came in here a few years ago, and I was we were doing just little shows and stuff. So I went back out and I was doing sound. I was doing head sound here, just because we couldn't find a sound person to come and do the show. It was Purple Rain, the Prince tribute.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fun show. And I wanted to do the sound on that, just get back into doing some sound, because that's where my real forte was over the years. And so they came in, they were trying to push a show, and I saw them sitting in the booth next to me, and I went over and talked to them, and, you know, I got the look of like, oh, are you here? I said, yeah, I'm here. I'm in charge. I'm the head carp. I'm in charge of everything. And they're like, oh. But they never brought it in because they want it, you know, they want the hotel to pay everything and stuff like that. And this place basically wants you to do a 4-wall. They don't want to take any risk on any of it. So
No, they're, you know, you got to give them credit for what they've done, because they've pursued it and they've kept it going. But is it the right way or wrong way? Who knows?
yeah. Well, you have to look at it this way. You know, Splash was the #1 show in town for what, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. You know, it was a fun show. Mm-hmm. And that's when I left there and I came over here to be the head carpenter in '94. So.
Yeah, when I was, because I've been a couple officers of the union and everything else, during that time, I found out that when you do a contract, you had letters of request in, and the union used to fight against it because they wanted just to call out of the hall. They didn't want to let you call who you wanted. And then I found out that someone that I know is the one that created the letter of request through the hall. The hotels wanted him to build their shows, so they would put in a letter of request for this guy named Al Bash, and so he is the first letter of request that went to the hall that they accepted, and that's how the letter of request actually started. Was because of my brother.
Didn't they call that the Al Bash Clause?
The Al Bash Clause.
Wow, you're famous, man. You're famous all over the place.
I am.
He is the guy. When he became a stagehand back in the early '60s, whatever, huh?
Three.
63.
I wasn't going to say 3. I was early '60s. I just can't.
63.
But when he became it, the whole family followed him. Not only did our family follow him, my mom was a wardrobe lady, and I think she was at the DI. Here? Or the DI? The DI, huh? My mom followed as a wardrobe lady. The whole family followed him. My uncle, Pat Huffine, followed him, which he brought his kids, Joe Shank, and then Joe Shank Senior brought Junior in, and then on Al's wife's side, the Webbers, that then they came in, and you had Elliot, you have
Kit was doing it for a minute. He didn't like it.
and then you had
Mark.
You have Mark, and Mark moved to California and became part of the movie industry.
Movie, TV, sound,
Yeah, sound.
sound, knew everybody.
He became that part of it.
Yeah.
So by him coming in early 60s, the whole family just followed him.
And then Robert Dean, I
Robert
got
Dean.
Robert Dean into it.
Which comes from the Webbers. Is Robert Dean has a company called ZFX, and he learned from Foy. When Pat was working for Foy, he brought Robert Dean in. Robert Dean went in and then decided to start his own business, and now is one of the top flying directors, manufacturers, installers of flying people.
Yeah.
And does very well. So the whole family, from what my brother did, has changed all of our lives.
Yeah.
And as much as I have to say, I'm appreciative of it. It's given me a very good life. It's given the whole family's a very good life. My sister got into it. We got her into it from what she used to do. And she has a retirement, a small retirement because she wasn't there very long. But it helped her. So I have to give kudos to my brother for finding the whole family, and not just our family, but the whole family, something that we all could appreciate, we all could dive into, and enjoy. And I'm not doing air conditioning.
Yeah.
And he tried to push me. He tried to push me out of the business, getting me to try. Go do this. Go think of this. Go do this. And no, I was bound and determined. I'm going to be a stagehand, and even through high school and everything, it's what I wanted to do. And 35 years later, I'm still doing it.
I took my kid, and I wouldn't let him come in to be a stagehand because you don't want to be a stagehand, but I made him do other jobs before I actually got him into stagehand, and he does very well. He's lived in New York and been head carpenters and that for some of the Newsies and stuff like that on Broadway, and so he's developed a whole routine. Pat's developed a whole routine. I've developed a whole routine within our industry. Robert Dean, excuse me, I got to call him Robert. Robert Dean at ZFX has developed it. So what my brother did by becoming a stagehand because carpentry wasn't interesting enough has changed our whole family.
Yeah. So you guys are just the opposite. You guys have grown a lot of people into the business. And my grandfather had my uncles and my dad, and then it was just my brothers and I. I was the first one in, my other brothers weren't really considering it at all, And so I was basically the first one in, and they're all out of it basically, and I'm out of it now. And none of my kids, my one son, he came into it for just a little while, went, nope, and that's it. So basically, I'm it,
You're the last
and
of the
I'm
last.
done, and I'm done. So at this point, the Hayeses are out of the game.
Wow. It's like the Ritzes. The Ritzes were a big thing in Vegas. I remember them being at the Sands, and
Who would you have? The A's?
the Ritzes.
Oh, Ritzes, yeah.
Where were they?
Bobby Ritz?
Bobby Ritz. You had.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was Bobby, Bob. There was two different Bobs.
Yeah.
Melinda. There was, there was a bunch of them too. And
Yeah. So what was the other? There's some other names. Remember?
Not a fan.
we'll probably come up with that. I'm going to end this episode right here, and then we'll carry on. We're getting into some serious history here. So, all right. So with that, Talbot, go ahead and take it away again.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.